Yeah.
Is the purple
But they're
shirt
not
with
in
the
the
blue
middle.
background too dark?
No.
I don't know. Again,
Maybe.
I am
Exactly.
colorblind.
Kelly.
Purple. How does that look?
It
Does
looks
look
okay.
like he's-
I'm Paul with Erica and Mr. Lewis, who teaches at CW Stanford Middle School.
Right.
And we're
We are curious as to how you think about growth mindset with your students. And
Rather than teach a specific skill, how to do drafting or how to do this or how to code or whatever it is, engineering is more of a mindset. It's a way of thinking more than it is a specific skill. There are specific skills that you need, but you need to be able to attack things like an engineer. I refer to it as problem solving more than I do any kind of a mindset. But that's because I think these children are more familiar with problem solving than they would be with talking. Well, I do three what I call impossible challenges. And that name hits them right off the bat because I tell them it's impossible. And it's actually part of the gimmick, if you will, is they think they're impossible. They get the first challenge and it seems impossible because it's very difficult, but then they do it. And so by the time I get to the third impossible challenge, every time I say it's impossible, they go, oh, it's not impossible. And that's right there, taking them right into, it's not impossible. Things aren't impossible. They seem impossible at the beginning. You try it a couple times and you figure it out.
Thinking about your perfectionist student and that fear of failure. So fear of failure is, of course, part of every human's nature, and in
Yes.
particular, your perfectionist students.
Yes.
Do you see an evolution of that fear of failure over the course of the time you're working with students, especially maybe students that you have for more than just the short class?
Nobody's born knowing anything. So nobody's born knowing how to walk. Nobody's born knowing how to speak. If you've been born in a different country, you might be speaking a different language right now, one that you're struggling to learn. That could be your language. And so don't beat yourself up if you don't know it already, because you're not born knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other bit of advice that I give out to students a lot.
Well, for anyone who doesn't already know, we've been talking about this growth mindset concept. Can you kind of explain just your working definition, like how you sort of define growth mindset for your own teaching, for your work in the classroom?
I really define a growth mindset as a willingness to fail. That's really how I define it, and I do that with my own teaching in that, I'm trying these two new big writing modules with my classes right now, and last year they were disastrous. But nobody's a finished product.
What's your favorite activity that you get to do with the middle schoolers?
Oh my gosh, favorite activity I get to do with middle
In the
schoolers in the classroom. Gosh, there's so many things that are a lot of fun. Honestly, I have for the last 10 years that I've been teaching here. I have my students start class at the beginning of each semester, or 9 weeks for 6th graders. We have a daily writing assignment, and I do it on with pencil and paper because I really feel like that's beneficial that they actually write. There's a different process in the mind than typing, and so I have them write, and I've had them write about things like, what would you invent if you could invent something, or what would you do if you could, I don't know, lots of things. But I recently found some other questions that are could be much more personal. And so it asks them things about, what's the best thing that's ever happened to you, or the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and what did you learn from it, or what are you most thankful for? And so they're a little more personal about the students' lives, and a little bit less about my curriculum, and a little bit more about them. And the responses I get from that have been absolutely amazing. I've had 2 students write about how the best thing that's ever happened to them was being born with birth defects. And I kind of read it and go, I don't think they understood, but then they talk about, because I was born with this birth defect, this is what I've had to do. And because I had to do that, this is what I've been able to do. Both of them excellent students, marvelous students. And it's inspiring.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so how do you see that affecting your class or affecting your ability to reach the students?
Well, the other thing I do with them is, except for a couple of them, I don't do this, but for most of the writing assignments, when I collect them, I sit at the front and I read off, without reading the names, I read the first 2 or 3 lines of what they've written. And what they do, and then of course there is that day where I have them write about what's the best or the worst thing that's ever happened to you. I do allow them to write "don't read" at the top, because if it's really that personal,
Right, it can be personal.
I don't want to do that. But what that allows is, it allows me, for someone else, it allows another student in here to hear somebody else who's had the same experience they've had. And they don't know that they've had that experience together. And so it allows for commonality, the sort of the putting down of all the walls and recognizing the human behind all of it.
What's your advice to me for approaching a problem?
Again, don't be afraid to mess it up. Yeah, and I actually talked to you about this. The reason why I got introduced to Carol Dweck and her stuff is I realized I have the worst worst fixed mindset of anyone I've ever met.
One of the root reasons we're interested in growth mindset is because we want to explore the possibility of a relationship between getting students together in groups, pairs, trios, and the development of a growth mindset. We're trying to see, is there a connection? Does working with someone on a problem help you overcome your fear of failure, overcome your worry that something isn't going to work, overcome your doubts about your own ideas?
Or at least put you into a situation where you have a peer to commiserate with, or coach, or possibly help you move past that.
Like, I'll never get this.
I will not get this.
So, and I know you have your students working in pairs on some of the
Frequently.
groups, on some of
Yes.
the projects.
Mhm.
So what are some of your reasons why you use pairs for challenges?
Well, first, right off the bat, there's less grading if it's half the,
Of
half the
course.
projects. No. I like to put my kids in groups because I think everybody can benefit from, if nothing else, just vocalizing your own ideas. It leads you to having to vocalize them, allows you to expand on them.
What would you tell your junior high self?
Okay. I would tell my junior high self to learn to do something well, and not be so quick with excuses for why it doesn't work or why I can't do it, but to persevere and to learn to be good at something.